Back in 1986, when I started working in this business, there was no thing called the internet. So when I put my first resume together, since I was trying to go and get jobs, I'd go and knock at doors and go and do castings, and nobody would take me seriously because I didn't have an agent and I didn't have a resume. So I put together a 3-page resume of all the projects that I wanted to do. And I put my name on them, starring in all these things. And that was my first resume. And it got me into the door. And as time went on, over the last 35 years, I filled up that thing. So it's no more lies on my resume. It's all truth. But it wasn't lies then, it was what I was going to make happen. And that's what I want to say. Most of what you are trying to accomplish today or tomorrow is the same thing you were trying to accomplish 20 years ago. You're the same person that you were then. If you lose that little spark that kept you motivated, that little piece, like this is my vocation. I love acting half the time, but there's some downfalls of it. You know, a lot of actors end up with personality identity crisis and conflicts because you have so many characters you're playing. And if you really commit to the characters, you become like a piece of clothing and your body becomes what they put on. And the character has a tendency of wanting to own you. They don't let go. What you saw in Anthony Hopkins and Hannibal Lecter, that monster lives in him. That's why we believed it. He had to tap into something very ugly in our human nature sometimes. And as an actor, sometimes I tap into beautiful things. But like with Lucius, and the character I play with Lucius, his life is filled with turmoil. So 90% of the day I'm walking around carrying his turmoil and also the turmoil from me and my own family. And then how do you have time to really bring yourself back to who you are? Because that's the most important thing. That's the thing that's going to bother you more than anything else. You will look at yourself one day and you won't know who you are because you don't remember who you were. You know, sometime along the way, or maybe at 13 or 14, we let go of the little person that kept us going. That little person that was always there, I got you, man, I'm here, I got you, don't go in there, I ain't going in there. That person, when we get about 13 or 14, we get embarrassed of him. And we push him aside and we don't listen to him anymore. And he's always knocking. Hey, hey. And after so long of a time, maybe 10, 15 years, you don't even know him. You show up at your own door and you don't even know who you are. Your family doesn't know who you are. So it's important, no matter what you do, no matter what challenges you go through, you remember who you are. You may think you've been here for 20 years on this planet, but we know that energy, it is forever. It doesn't die. It continually recycles itself. So you know that you've been a trilobite 350 million years ago, or some part of it. Some parts of you were part of a pterodactyl. Every one of us have been a part of everything in this universe. So if we tap into those things in ourselves and remember those things in ourselves, we have that power. Now, my vocation has been an actor, and I've loved that. I've been able to take care of my family as an actor, but that's never been my passion. I was an actor because it was like Jesus walking on water for tips. Because he could do it. That's what he did. It was a natural thing for him. I've always been an empath. I've always been emotionally connected to everything. As an actor, you're more like a medium. Mm-hmm. You know, when you really get there, you go into this zone and you really divorce yourself of who you are. Mm-hmm. And you just become a garment that something else puts on. Now, right. A lot of people sit up there and do impersonations of other folks, mm-hmm. You know, instead of allowing that spirit, you know, but I sit up and I'll pray for a little bit and go in a dark place, mm-hmm. Go in the bathroom, turn off the lights, look in the mirror. We'll have the light on at first, and then after 1 minute, turn the light off and, you know, and search until you see your own glow, your own aura. And then you watch it change.
Wow.
And it's a scary thing
Yeah.
because you'll feel like some hands are on you.
Wow.
And you lose a little bit of control of what you're doing. But you know, if you stay with it, you know, you'll be inhabited by something, and then you walk out and the character's with you, and you got to know how to say goodbye to it.
Right.
If you really want to get there.
Right.
You know, a lot of people are afraid, you know, to empty themselves and be filled up with something else. But, you know, as an actor, you're an emotional prostitute.
Wow.
You know, you put on whatever you need for the John. You put on, you're turning a trick. You're turning an emotional trick.
Wow.
And it's nothing more glorious than that.
Okay.
I try to use my platform as an actor to share this message. And they didn't want me to be an individual. They wanted me to be the character that they had paid for me to be. Yeah. And I'm like, no, that's not my walk. I came here, you know, this platform is great as an actor, but it's a platform for me to do more on. You know, I consider being an actor like an emotional whore. I've told you that before. Yes. You're an emotional prostitute. You think that they like you for what you're doing, but you're trading all of your personal memories. You're trading all of your hopes and dreams. Your body doesn't know that it's not real. Your body is going through all of this stuff, and the producers, they don't care about you and what you're doing. They don't care what you've gone through. Even Screen Actors Guild doesn't have for actors mental health care. Wow. You have to pay for your own mental health care. You know, if you have a personality conflict, you know, as a result of all the characters you've played. And what happens when you really go deep into a character, you lose yourself because you try and put your clothes back on and that character walks off with your life. You know, and you're just being part of a gangbang. If they like you, they trade you off to all of their producer buddies, and they'll have you turning the same trick, and you got to act like it's the first time every time. You got to act like you love it every time, but you might as well just be on a corner. So I didn't want to stay on that platform just as an actor, even though as a child, I thought I wanted to become an actor because my mother loved my little brother, and she wanted him to be an actor. And I thought if I became an actor, I would get her affection. And when she was passing, she told me that, you know, Terry, I always knew you were going to be fine. The reason I had to put so much time into Antonio is because he had asthma and his father wasn't so close to him and all of these things. And that meant a whole lot to me. But once she passed, I realized, wow, I never wanted to be an actor. I never wanted to be up here selling my emotions. And, you know, what did I need to, what did I really want to be? What was I supposed to be? Because if I had followed my course as a scientist from the beginning, my mother wouldn't have passed.
Can you talk a little bit more about, you know, that identified purpose as it relates to science? And how have you been able to wed the two, the acting and the science together?
Well, one of the good sides that came with acting, even though, like, there's an old proverb that says no one does a single thing for a single motive. Everyone has multiple motives for each action. I became an actor because I thought that I wanted to get my mother's approval, and didn't recognize that the platform that would give me by dancing in and out of other characters, changing my own natural homeostasis chemical state, when I would have to increase the cortisol levels, you know, by playing Lucius and all the things that came with that, or decreasing those levels and increasing the dopamine or some of those other epinephrine relaxative chemicals that come about inside the body. And then I realized that our entire body is a chemical processing plant.
Yes.
In our skin cells, what do they produce? They produce a proteins, keratin. Our liver, our kidneys produce renin. Our liver converts that renin into angiotensin 1, that goes into the body, up into the lungs. It becomes angiotensin 2 and aldosterone. So everything is a chemical processing plant, every structure, because it's utilizing the chemicals, which are nothing more than motion of either electricity or magnetism, and where we balance each other. That's all the chemicals are. Everything is just motion. Everything comes from two motions. Electricity isn't electricity. Electricity is the result of a particular motion, of a centripetal motion. And magnetism, it's not a real thing. Magnetism is the effect of centrifugal motion. All everything is either spinning to the right or spinning to the left. Contracting or expanding. And when people can understand that and recognize that, I think Plato once said that life was really about filling up a vessel and pouring the vessel out. All universal function is filling up something and dispelling it. So I want mankind to understand that. I also want mankind to understand that because of the understanding we have, we are responsible for our actions and everything that takes place in our actions. So as becoming an actor, I remember I had a conversation with Lorenz Tate about Old Dog, the character Old Dog that he played in Menace II Society. And I said, are you worried at all about people imitating? How many young men might have imitated Old Dog and the lives that may have been lost as a result of it? He said, I think about it a lot. But I'm not responsible for how somebody takes a character that I've played. But I found that I think I am responsible for what I put out on that screen. And so it's just balanced, understanding chemistry, understanding changing your emotion. And then I wanted to understand, okay, well, how does that affect and how's that translated in color? How's that translated in shape? How is that in the overall cosmogony of everything? Because everything had to be connected. So that's where I kind of crossed those bridges a little bit, if that wasn't too far off.
No, I follow you, brother. Because especially when you were talking about the spinning in and spinning out, the filling up and the emptying. And so I saw when you were saying that, like you're saying, going in and out of character, literally manipulating your own physiology in order to manifest a different type of personality. And that's a very deep level, because I'm sure that all actors probably do that, but not all do it consciously and understand that that's actually what's happening to their being at the time. There's a story about Tupac when he played Bishop in Juice, and how, that some say he never came back from that. I think it was Tretch from Naughty by Nature that spoke on that after Pac played that character, he never came all the way back to being Tupac Shakur, the descendant of Black Panthers. He went a little bit deeper into that thug life world.
Well, think about it. We have a number of different genes in our body that isn't activated, that becomes activated as a result of necessity. A number of genes. And sometimes playing a particular character puts you in a particular emotional pressure condition. And as a result of those raised cortisol levels or depleted dopamine levels or raised dopamine levels, other genes are activated. And genes are still part of him. Even though he's playing a character, he can only play it based upon his own understanding and common frame of reference. So it doesn't just affect the physical mind and the chemical composition that's taking place. That chemical composition also presses upon the individual genes. And you get like if you don't eat for 4 days, what happens? Particular genes kick in for survival. That are necessary for us, that will allow us to eat things that we typically would not be able to break down. That changes how the bladder is going to react, how the pancreas is going to react, how everything will react as far as secreting what's necessary to break down certain things. So everything is affected by everything. And as a character, I hope that I've affected people, because even when I've played a bad guy, I've always played him from the perspective of somebody trying to get something done out of frustration. I've rarely played someone. The only person I played that was absolutely evil was Trumpy in Idlewild. from,
Yes.
was evil.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, because he had a hatred for life. Like Doc Holliday, played by Val Kilmer in Tombstone, some who wanted revenge for being born and being live in this existence. And many people out there, many of the people that might watch this, they are angry, for having to be born and put into this situation called life, because they're not recognizing the fact that out of a 500 million sperm and a 24-hour blind marathon as a male and a 72-hour to 128-hour blind marathon as a female, going from here, the distance from the earth to the moon, as far as going from the vaginal cavity all the way up to reaching where the egg will reach. That's a distance comparable of going from here to the moon, going 3 or 4 millimeters, a minute at best. And each one of us won that race, 500 million man race, climbing over our dead brothers and sisters, not being defeated, following the purpose of I'm getting to this egg no matter what. I'm getting to this egg, and when I get to this egg and hit that corona radiata, I'm going to blast myself in there, and the zona pellucida, I'm going to push myself inside of there. And even if it breaks my head, I'm going to get there. That's the determination that we have to have, because that's what we got to life with. And when people forget that they won a 500 million man race, they forget how powerful they are. You come into this life as a winner.
The concept of personality, right, is based on the word persona, which is Greek for mask. And so people think that, what you're talking about, the acting is just you put on a mask, you play a role, you take the mask off, and that's just all it is. And not really understanding the depth of it. And what I'm coming to understand just in this conversation is that it's more like, the movie Split, right? When they had the multiple personality, or we call it dissociative identity disorder, and how each of the different personalities actually had its own physiology, had its own thing. Like there are records to where people can have one personality that loves peanut butter sandwiches, choke sandwiches, and another one of the personalities in the same body can have a peanut allergy and literally have the reaction to the peanuts, right? Just as if they have an allergy in the same body though. And it speaks truth to what you're saying, scientific support of what you're saying about the changing of the physiology to meet these different character needs and these different identities and these different personalities.
You can't turn it off. Once those genes are turned on, it takes an ice age to turn them off. It takes another extreme circumstance to turn them off. And so every time you're talking to an actor, literally all of those characters are present. They don't let go. All of those characters are present, and you just have to try and remember. It's like someone with Parkinson's, and they're all of these unnecessary twitches are happening, and they're just trying to stay normal down the center line. And that's why a lot of actors become fake, because they can do an imitation of themselves better than being themselves, because they've forgotten who they are.
Wow. See, they just take on a whole persona just to help to maintain the sanity of their day-to-day existence.
Yeah, it's crazy.
There's levels to this. You also mentioned that at SAG, there's no mental health. It doesn't cover mental health services.
Cover mental health services at all. And every actor that I know deals with extreme depression, deals with extreme anxiety, deals with extreme rejection, and the need for someone to always say that they're good, the desire to have someone pat them on the back. Like when I'm working, when I do something that's really incredible, I don't mind the applause. I don't mind the director patting me on the back. But if I don't want somebody patting me on the back after every scene, saying that was great, because when they don't, here comes the cortisol levels rising, the fear. And you get hooked into that and looking, was that okay? Was that okay? Was that good? And it's like, no, throw that shit away. It's important. Don't allow it to affect you as an actor out there. Don't look for the appraisal of any of these people. What you need to look for as an actor is reaching the greater truth, because the moment that you reach a greater truth in understanding that character, then you can tell that gene to recess and to
not necessary. You don't need to be in a defensive place, but we need the mental health. There should be a therapist on site, a number of therapists. You should have 2 or 3 weeks or a month of therapy that should be covered by SAG after you get out of a character, just to help you get back into who you were. But they don't provide that at all. And how many actors commit suicide by, using drugs and all other kind of means? And I've got nothing against using drugs. I like watching the tigers or the pumas, the Black Panthers that's down in South America, where they will grab one of those giant millipedes and bite it just enough for it to get neurotoxin.
Yeah.
And they sit there slobbering on themselves for a half hour to an hour. The monkeys do it. Everything does it. So, to say use food to fuel our system. Sometimes we need other things to fuel our psyche, to way, but it should not be about you just trying to get high or just get by. It should be about seeking something, even if it's just seeking peace for a minute. But you have full control of what you put into your body. Do what you want to do, but know what you're doing. Don't smoke it. The ashes that fall on the floor could be you, like the great poet and brilliant mind of Moms Mabley.
Right. Yeah. There's a strong ancient tradition for using mind altering substances, whether you're talking about ayahuasca, where you're talking about, the use of what they call magical mushrooms and, different types of things that are smoked, peyote, and again, not as a drug for addiction purposes, but something to help to expand consciousness and to actually expand your understanding and embracing the reality. So I hear what you're saying, brother.
For it to be a safe experience, you need a guide. Yeah. And, so I don't know how I got off into that little place, but that's what happens with Screen Actors Guild and what actors are forced to do in order to cope with, these personality conflicts that come about.